So this is EmuLnk running on RetroArch. So this is a companion app which works for just a few select games currently. However, the library is expanding. So you can see here, I've just started a battle with a drowsy. We've got all this information here. I've got my party information on this tab. I've got my Pokedex information, so I can see where I am on the route, and I can see there I've captured all the Pokemon on that particular route. So what this does is it reads the memory values, so it's not actually supported with the usual versions of the emulators. It does update live, you can see there. So there are currently some specific emulators you have to install. So what I'll do is I'll show you how to set up EmuLnk. Okay, so basically the way EmuLnk works is, for those of you who are more technical, it is explained on the GitHub page, but it's essentially uses the memory addresses to communicate with a theme configurator. Kind of similar to retro achievements almost. It needs those memory values. In order to expose those memory values, there are separate versions of the emulators you can see here. There's RetroArch, there's Dolphin, there's PPSSPP, MelonDS, and Azahar. So for the sake of this video, I'll only be covering RetroArch. The others, they don't have a lot of games on them at the moment. However, if you're a developer or you're interested, then by all means, join the Discord, get involved with the development, because I think this has the potential to be an absolute game changer of an app. So in order to get it set up, the first thing we're going to do is you need to make sure you have Obtainium installed. If you've not seen any of my videos before and you don't know what Obtainium is, you can just go to this link here, I'll leave in the description, and install Obtainium by going to the releases, whichever the latest version is, and downloading the app release APK and installing that. Obtainium is basically a way to monitor GitHub updates and things like that. So all the emulators and all the apps we use can be easily tracked rather than having to manually check for updates and things like that. So luckily, we have this JSON file on the EmuLnk, so we're going to download that. So we're going to tap into it and then just press the little download icon. Do make sure that you don't just right-click and save as, because I've had a few people with some of my scripts do that and then say that they weren't working. So just this little download icon here, next to where it says raw. So now we're going to go over to our Obtainium, which I've got installed. We're going to hit import. We're going to do an Obtainium import, and then we're just going to import that JSON file. And it should have given us all these options here under EmuLnk or EmuLnk. So the first one we're going to need is the main EmuLnk app, so we're going to get that. We'll install that. And then we'll also get the repo. This is just a way to kind of monitor the changes. So whenever there's an update, it will let you know. And then you can get any emulator you like. I'm just going to get RetroArch. So sometimes if this happens, all you can do is, if you see where it says download release asset, if you just tap that, it'll download the APK for you. For some reason, it can be a little bit funny sometimes. Hello, this is Editing Alex here. So the version that I was using in this tutorial, the latest pre-release version, which came out a couple of days ago, for some reason, didn't work for me. So what I ended up doing was downgrading it to the version below, which I believe is 0.22. I'll just confirm that. Yep, 0.22. So do make sure you use that one, not 0.2.3, which I used in this one. So I've just felt that vibrate, so it's downloaded to my downloads. There we go, there's RetroArch. I'm just going to install it this way rather than through Obtainium. Can be a little bit picky. So first, I'll just set up RetroArch. So I have done a full setup video on RetroArch. Unfortunately, you'll have to set it up again. So I'm just going to do a very quick setup. So you can feel free to skip this bit, or you can play along. So the first thing I'm going to do is change that awful menu driver. So I'm going to press my right analog stick a couple of times until I get to our settings. I'm going to go down to drivers. I'm going to change the driver to XMB. I'm going to back out. I'm going to go across a couple of tabs back to configuration file. Now, if you've seen any of my videos before, you know the one thing I always say with configuration files, you've got to keep saving them in RetroArch, because otherwise all the changes you make will be lost to time. Once that's done, I'm going to close the app, and then I'm going to open it back up. Now we have our XMB UI, which I think is a lot easier and a lot nicer looking. So you can see as well that this looks kind of ugly. It's not got the normal fonts of the usual RetroArch. So what we can do is if we go to our online updater, we can update our core info files, our assets. There we go. It's all pinged straight in. Our controller profiles. You can get your cheats, your databases, your overlays, that kind of thing. So one thing I'm also going to do is I'm going to go to my input, go to my menu controls, and then I'm just going to untick this menu swap OK and cancel buttons. There we go. Just so it matches the B is back, A is select kind of thing. I'm just going to go into my RetroPad binds. I'm going to set my analog and digital type to left analog. So this basically means that when I move the analog stick, it will translate them into the cardinal directions on the D-pad. So you can use either or. Then I want to come down and go to set all controls. I'm just going to run through this. So you just need to hold each control that it asks you for a couple of seconds. Like I said, I am rushing through this very quickly. I do have full setup guides where I do take my time a little bit more. Although, as I've covered it before, there's no point me repeating myself too much. So I'm hoping as well that the features that EmuLnk uses in these custom forks of the emulators, I'm hoping at some point they do become part of the main versions of the emulators if someone wants to submit a pull request, a smarter man than I. I won't worry too much about the hotkeys, but I'll just set my usual. So I hold select for my hotkey enable, and then I just press my X button, hold my X button for my menu toggle, and then hold my start button for quit, just so I can access the menu from within games. So I'm going to be sure to save that configuration. So now I need to just download our cores. So if you're new to RetroArch, basically RetroArch is like a kind of emulator front end almost. So basically it has, we go to our core downloader, these are all the emulators that it has. They're basically very cut down versions of the emulators essentially. So there's tons in here. Just for this example, I'm just going to get a couple. I'll get Gambate for the Game Boy. I'll get MGBA for the GBA. I'll get Meeson for the NES. I'll get SNES 9X for the SNES. And I think that'll do for now. I'm going to save that configuration. And now, that is a very, very rough setup of RetroArch. So what I'll do now is I'll exit out of this, and then I'll have a look at our EmuLink app. So I'll open it in the top screen first, just so we can see it a little bit better. So first, we're going to need to grant some permissions. So just go through, and then you need to make a root folder. So like I always say, all you need to do is in your root storage, make a new folder for that specific app, just so it can keep all its app data in the top level storage. So I already have one. So just make a folder called EmuLink and then use this folder. We need to grant overlay permission, because this does also work on single screen devices using overlays. But for this tutorial, I'll just be showing the second screen version. We'll go next. So you want to auto boot the theme, because basically the way this works is there are themes that you download for your games. So if you have that enabled, whenever you open the game, it will automatically load the theme for you rather than you having to keep doing it each time. So then we'll finish the setup. So we're going to make sure we've synced the repository by tapping our little refresh button. And then this little kind of palette icon in the top right, tap that, and we can see all the games that are currently compatible. So there's not loads, but this is a relatively new app. So if we go to our GBA, we can see we've got Pokemon Emerald and Pokemon Fire Red, like I demonstrated at the beginning of the video. And then there's some for GameCube. I've not actually tried the GameCube. There's Wind Waker in there. We've got Pokemon Crystal on the Game Boy Color. We've got we've got Heart Gold for the DS. I've not actually seen the DS version yet, because I think that will be overlay only. There's PSP, there's PS1. Oh, Final Fantasy 7. I'll have to give that a try at some point. N64, Genesis. So hopefully, like I said at the start, if you are someone who is interested in making these, by all means, join the Emulink Discord. I'll leave a link to it below and get involved in the development, because I think this could be one of the coolest apps for the AYN Thor, and also I think emulation in general. So what I'll do, you can download these themes in advanced, or what you can do, if I close the app, and then I'm going to open it on my bottom screen, I'm going to open RetroArch on my top screen, and then I'm going to load a game. So I've loaded my games into RetroArch already. So to do that, if you haven't already, you go to playlists. You can, sorry, not playlists. If you go to scan directory, and then you find your ROMs folder, so you might have to go up a few times, find where your ROMs are saved, and then point it at the relevant directory, and then just press scan this directory. And what that will do is it will scan the directory and it will pop it up here, like the old PSP and PS3. This is why I advise using this menu driver, because it just makes things so much easier. So I know that, I believe, Metroid has one. So we'll open up Metroid. Okay, there we are. So that has now worked. Now, I did find that with the most recent version of the RetroArch link, it didn't work. So if you do use the 0.22 version, I think it is, I'll make sure that I do edit something in so you don't end up wasting time like I did trying to download it and test it on a version that doesn't work. So you'll see as I've been firing, my health's gone down, it now matches. So if I just, there we go, you can see the health bars dropping, you can see my little auto map at the bottom. It's gonna be fantastic. I did just see a report as well whilst I was trying to figure out what was wrong. I believe that some emulators have spoken to the developer of this and said that they will be looking at implementing these features in the native version. So hopefully you won't have to use the forks for much longer, because they're a little bit more annoying. So I think if you tap or you press and hold, or there's a button, there we go. We can go back. And then if I go over to themes again, we can see, so for all the themes, so in this case, there's theme and there's overlay. So if you're on a single screen device, you want the overlay. If you're a dual screen one, you can just have the full theme. So not much to choose from currently, but extremely exciting for what could potentially be an absolute game changer of a companion app. So that was Emulink. If this video helped you out, I'd appreciate a like and a subscribe. Tell your friends, and I will see you next time.